He just chose to sit back there. Actually, I was going to have Ed speak last, but he has an appointment, so he gets to speak first. Ed is the ninth of 11 children. Ed grew up just outside of Chicago. He graduated from Marquette University with a Bachelor of Arts and a Master's in History. In 1975, he moved to Oregon, where he attended Willamette Law School and obtained his Juris Doctorate in 1978. He moved to Redmond in 1979, married Susan Allison and raised two children, Alex and Andrew, one of our past presidents, thank you. His family has grown recently to include two lovely granddaughters and one handsome grandson.
3 granddaughters now.
3. Oh. Mr. Fitch was a partner in Bryant, Emerson and Fitch from 1983 to 2013. Since 2013, he's been at Fitch Law Group, now Fitch and Neary. He served as city attorney for Redmond from 1979 to 1996 and was mayor of Redmond from 1999 to 2001. And he liked it so much, he came back to do it again. He also was a member and chairperson of the Redmond Development Commission from 2010 to 2013, a member of the South US 97 Advisory Committee from 2013 to 2018, and served as president and board member of the Redmond Executive Association. Let me pause for a moment and say, after you have a few words, then we'll open it up for questions. Mr. Neer, Mr. Fitch, come on up. Mr. Neer, come on up.
Thank you. What I really want to emphasize today is that there's been a bit of shift in the city council for Redmond between 2 years in the past and today. And the reason for that is we want to have a much more open dialogue with the community on every issue that affects Redmond. This would include discussions about homelessness solutions, marijuana dispensaries, you name it, it'll be a subject of discussion, not only with the council, but with the community at large. If you've watched any of the council meetings since early January, you may have noticed that I call everyone by their first name. And the reason I do that is because in one sense, we've lost a little bit of a sense of community here in Redmond. It's been a little bit divisive, polarized between whether left or right for whatever reason on a number of issues. And I do think we've lost a little sense that we're all in this together to solve problems that affect our community. There's not a golden answer out there that's waiting in the weeds. It's a process by which everybody who wants to be involved can be involved. That would include the city staff, the whole city council, and members of the community. All their input is extremely important. And so there's going to be a much more open process at our city council meetings and even throughout the city government as to input from the community and then input up to the city council on policy issues. Tuesday night, we started talking about homelessness. We have a requirement under state law to have time, place, and manner regulation as to where homeless people can sleep and can camp and where they cannot. We have a couple court cases out of the 9th Circuit that indicate you cannot penalize someone for just being homeless, for having the ability to sleep. It's a violation of the 8th Amendment to in the Bill of Rights. Having the status of homelessness is not a crime. It's not something that you can have civil penalties for. And we now have a state law saying that we have to allow people to camp or sleep in various areas of the city that has to be reasonably determined. So our initial discussion was last night. There was quite a bit of input from the public, and that was very helpful. Over the next month or two, we'll be working out those solutions. And the three components of that discussion are: one, kind of compassion for those who are homeless or disadvantaged in the situation, finding a safe place for them to be. The second part of it is this regulatory environment that we have, both by state law and these court cases. And the third one is I'll call it neighborhood integrity. Mixing homeless with residential areas is, from my perspective, just problematic to the nth degree. We've had situations where we've had RVs in front of residences, and the impact on those people has been very intense. So we do need to find areas that people can sleep in, people can camp in. But more importantly, we need to find places where it's more structured. And so we're working hard on a safe parking program where people can take their cars and RVs if they do not have a home or an apartment, and know that their place will be secure for them. In that safe parking program, we will also have a management system trying to get these people out of the homeless situation, back on their feet and back in a place with a roof over their head. And the other part of it is called Oasis Village. It's going to be out kind of on the northeast side, north of 126 and east of 9th Street. That will provide physical structures for people who don't have an RV or a car. All these take a lot of effort. There's a lot of people involved in these things. Some of it's a bit like herding cats. But we're committed to make both the safe parking program and the Oasis Village a reality by this fall. We're going to take whatever efforts we need to make that happen. We know now that doing nothing is not a solution. In fact, doing nothing has created significant problems for the community. For example, the RVs parking in residential areas. One other problem that Zach has run into is north of the airport on the northeast side, we have a runway protection zone. FAA has notified us that can not have any encampments in it. There are some homeless encampments in that runway protection zone. And what we have to do now is fence that whole area off at a cost of over $800,000. So doing nothing has a price tag, and a significant price tag for the community. Another issue that we're going to take up this year is whether or not we should have any marijuana dispensaries. And believe me, there's a lot of passion all across the board on that issue. And what I believe is what we need to find is some kind of balance that takes into consideration the concerns of school district, takes into concerns of people who see drugs as a problem and see marijuana dispensaries as a problem, but also those in the community that deserve access to a marijuana dispensary. There are quite a few people, not just in the city of Redmond, but in our market area. It includes Powell Butte, Terrebonne, Crooked River Ranch, Eagle Crest, who have been prescribed marijuana for medical purposes, yet they cannot access that here in our community. I don't think that's a great idea. There's also a legal right for adults over 21 to access a marijuana dispensary if they so choose. Now, we hear a lot of discussions in all the public comments that we have about rights, that people have rights. And what's interesting to me is that whenever we have that kind of discussion, it's very selective on what rights are important and what rights are not important. To me, they're all important. So if a person has a right to have marijuana legally, they should have a right to access that reasonably. People have a need for medical marijuana for whatever reason, they should have a right to access that in our community. So taking into consideration that side of the equation, taking into consideration the people who are concerned about having those kind of in your face in the community with families and stuff, I do think an appropriate approach might be to prohibit those in downtown, might prohibit those on Highway 126 on Highland Avenue. So they're not right where a lot of families are, where a lot of kids are, but like our liquor stores here in town, having them at the north and south end may be an appropriate balance between access and protection for children, especially, and families in particular. So those are two of the hot topics that we're going to be probably dealing with. That's, and when you look at city government and what we're dealing with, 95% of it is not controversial. Transportation, sewer, water, those are all things that generally there's a strong consensus on what direction we're going to take and how we get there. And so there's a continuation from prior administrations to this administration on those kinds of issues that just goes forward without any skip in the process. Our biggest challenge on those kinds of issues is money. What we need and how much money we have are two different things. So one of the jobs that we have, Zach and Megan know, is find money and from whatever source we can. So we do a lot of begging. We talk to our state representatives, we talk to our federal representatives, we have grant writers. We're always seeking money. I think in many respects we've been successful in that, particularly out at the airport. Zach's done a great job of bringing more resources in. We're also looking at other sources of revenue or money to build things. For example, I believe we should put more sidewalks in older parts of town so people don't have to walk on the street, older people, young kids. And one way to do that is like through a local improvement district where everyone who's affected pays for it, but on a long-term basis over 15 years at a very reasonable interest rate. That way you get the sidewalk put in place, but it doesn't affect the city budget. Now that's not an easy process, one the staff's not crazy about, but one I'll keep pushing because I do think it will be a great enhancement to the neighborhood livability of those areas that don't have sidewalks. There's a lot on our plate. I think I've been to maybe like 40 meetings in the last 25 days on these kinds of issues, but it's very enjoyable and opening up for a really open dialogue with the community on every issue that affects Redmond. I think it's important and we will continue to do. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
So where are we on the dispensary issue and what is the next step?
So what we want to do is have a discussion that brings in all the facts, not some facts that someone picks out of the air that may or may not be accurate. So we will have the police chief from Bend, for example, come and tell us what their experience is on dispensaries and whether they are a magnet for any criminal activity. My guess is they're not. I think we've already talked to them. We'll have people who come in from all sides of the story as to the need for medical access for marijuana. We'll come in with some ideas on how we would control the time, place, and manner. So it's not in everybody's face, but maybe in a more subdued setting. And there will be, I'm sure, a lot of opinions on why we shouldn't have it. But you have to have that open discussion. You have to have flexibility on dealing with what input you get and come up with the best decision for the community. And that'll probably happen in April, May timeframe. So, any other questions? Well, I would take that as we're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I apologize. I got to go to a meeting a little bit, so I'll be leaving a little bit.
Next up, Zach Bass. Prior to joining the city of Redmond in 2015, Zach spent 9 years in the United States Air Force. His tenure included training Air Force officers, direct oversight of more than 100 active duty personnel, and 6 operations, administrative overview of more than 400 Air Force Reserve personnel, assistant professorship of aerospace studies, and serving as a business operations manager, as well as the deployment in Iraq. In addition to his military service, Mr. Bass was a supervisor at Hexcel Advanced Composites and a private business owner in Washington. Mr. Bass holds a bachelor's from the University of Portland and a master's from Penn State. He was named Oregon Airport Manager of the Year in 2017 and is a certified member of the American Association of Airport Executives. And if you've flown out of RDM lately, you know he's doing a heck of a job. Zach?
Thank you. Okay. We're there. All right, well, I have some things to go over. Who's here has listened to me speak in the last year or two? Quite a few. So a lot of times I'll focus on, you know, how the business of the airport works and kind of hit on all those. But today, since it's a panel, I want to work on air service, and then I'm going to talk about the terminal expansion. But first, if you don't know already, the airport is about 1/4. The airport manages, city-owned airport manages about 2,600 acres inside the city of Redmond's UGB. So it's a big component of the land inside the UGB. Now I bring that up because in the colored areas here, plenty of opportunities for development. So realtors, commercial realtors, if you need any land to build anything on, please reach out to us and let us know. Real quick, main runway, 523, secondary runway, both 7,000 feet long. The main runway 523 is our instrument landing system runway. If you've seen, or if you live out at the Greens in the last 2 years, you've seen your approaches increase for commercial traffic because the FAA set up a safety corridor. So we're getting a lot more phone calls from especially Tumalo as they're coming over and before they didn't. Now, passengers. Last year we did over 1 million passengers. This year we're projected to do 1.1 million passengers. You can see since 2013, 115% growth.
Wow.
In the red, 9/11, the recession and COVID, but overall, even with those kind of small issues occurring, you're seeing growth, especially over the last 20, 25 years, and we're expecting it to consider. That'll lead us a little later into the terminal expansion. This is a new slide I put in here, but it gives you an idea of inbound visitation, 4 million people into Central Oregon, and you can kind of compare that to, let's say, Bozeman, Vail, Whitefish, Steamboat. These are all the cities that we can compare ourselves to when it comes to visitation and how important, you know, bringing visitors here is. Right now, it's about 70% of our passengers are here for leisure, 30% for business. It used to be more. Business hasn't completely come back totally yet. Who we serve, about 70% of our customers are from Bend and Sun River or traveling there and back. Redmond is at 11%, but actually that's growing. So I think this is a little old, but I think we're up to almost 13%. And then the other regions in Central Oregon make up the rest of our passengers. Right now, we have 5 airlines to 9 destinations. We are actually down about 9% in flights. Fewer flights, but we're up in seats. And I'll talk about that upgauging on the next slide. We are really doing very well, if you like it or not, in the Southern California region. Alaska Airlines added directs right before COVID, and they've been very successful for us. We are looking for Portland. I know there might be a question about that. Reconnection to Portland. Allegiant pulled out, so we're looking at a connection to Las Vegas. We're still pushing for a daily to Dallas, and then hopefully reinstating our seasonal to Chicago. That's kind of our next push, and I can get into a little more detail on that. When I talked about, where's that? That's there. Oh, there should be some. Anyway, so when I talk about upgauging, right now we do about 3 to 4 mainline a day in the summer. When I say mainline, 737, 180 seat plus aircraft. Most of the time, though, throughout the year, and those other flights during the summer, you're flying in what's called an E175 Embraer. They're nice, right? It's kind of like a mini 737. Now, with the pilot shortage nationally, this summer, we will see almost more than probably half of our flights will be transitioning to either a 737-8 or 900 or into an Airbus 319-320.
Oh, wow.
So, not more frequencies, larger aircraft. So comparing us to other regional airports throughout the nation, that is great. Because other ones are actually just losing flights because they don't have the pilots or crew. They're upgauging us kind of into a new market, per se. So top markets, we serve our top ones. Vegas, we're still missing, but we do also serve Burbank, Salt Lake. I kind of talked a little bit about Chicago and Dallas. And of course, we'd love to get to John Wayne sometime in the future. Talked about these already, so I'll skip that. And then I'll move into what all this means, right? 115% growth, upgauging of aircraft. The last 4 years, we've seen this coming and we've been planning a terminal expansion. Give me a few months and have me back, because I'll actually have a lot, these are kind of older renderings. We're about 20% through design right now, so you're gonna see some better renderings coming up soon, so make sure you have me back if you want to. Currently, here's what it looks like. Right, you're ground boarding, you're walking out the door, people love it in the summer, they hate it in the winter. These are 9 planes, we actually have 2 more spots, so 11 spots. On average, we have RONs remain overnights from 9 to 10 every night. First phase of the expansion that you'll see, especially the customers, is pushing up to the 2nd floor, hold room, 60 to 70,000 square feet, more retail, more concessions, and jet bridges. So still having regional from the ground level, but pushing into the jet bridge connections on the top. And then the rest of these are kind of just, yeah. Here's a rendering, kind of give you an idea. I'll go through these real quick. We want to kind of keep the same feel that we currently have, that lodge, rock, timber, also a lot of glass to take advantage of these views that the golf course has that we don't have from the terminal, which is frustrating. An escalator, which I thought we would have been the first one in Central Florida to have an escalator, but there's another one. So ours is going to be a little longer, just a little higher. Again, here's just some ideas. As we move through this process, it'll come into more fruition. About a year ago, the estimated cost for all of those phases, anywhere between 180 to 200 million. We're gonna break them into phases. We're digging into that hard right now with our financial plans. So first phase, we're probably looking around, 100 million. And the reason I say that is because right now we have about 95 million that we can count on. The mayor mentioned asking for grants. I have $63 million in asks out there right now for other grants. PSA, hopefully Connect Oregon when it comes up, the BILEIG infrastructure grant, all those. We just don't know those, so it's hard to plan for them, but there's a lot of money out there that we're trying to get to build as much of this as possible. So any questions for me? Yes.
So you mentioned Portland.
Yes.
You knew there would be questions. What is it going to take to reinstate that Portland destination?
So 3 weeks ago, I was in Phoenix meeting with the airlines, met with Alaska. In the years past, they said, we're not going to see anything added to Portland until 2025, 26. But at this meeting, they said, we realize we've gutted the regional connection through Portland too much. So we're going to look at 2024. Now, that's not this summer, but in terms of kind of air service and an airline, that's not bad. So I think we'll probably see a reinstatement in the spring of 24 is my guess. And you can't just add one flight. You usually have to add a double twice a day. Otherwise, it doesn't work when it comes to customers. So there's all that involved, but hopefully it'll be like 2 or 3 times a day added in 24. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Zach, thanks for the presentation. Very well done. During construction, how is the plan to keep, I presume you keep the same amount of traffic coming in and staying overnight and so forth. You have less space for people. So I'm sure there's a plan to have enough room for planes while you're doing construction on one end of it, and all the baggage areas and all that.
That's one of our biggest issues, and it actually adds a lot of cost, right? We have to keep the airport fully operational. Why we build on top of it or to the side of it? That's a huge question. But as we gotta get through what we're gonna create, and if you get online at FlyRDM right now, you can look at our project page. You can give us we'll have updates as we kind of go through this process. You can give us your input. Yeah, I went to Starbucks, whatever. But to your point, once in about 3 months, we're gonna have a big wall up at the airport. And it'll be a project update where we'll keep everybody updated, especially as we hit construction this next summer. So you'll be at least, I don't have a great answer for you on the scope, except that it's a big scope. Yeah. I'm trying to do that.
When a new airline comes in, like Avelo, for instance, is there a certain time frame you can expect to see them before it's more solid? Or, I mean, AHA was come and gone. It seemed like.
Yeah, AHA actually did pretty well with us in Reno, but they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Nationally, so that we lost them. Usually the process is especially for the legacy airlines. They'll come in and try a season. Seasonal works well, they'll start extending the seasons every year. Eventually it's full-time. And that full-time once a year or once a day, let's say, is doing well, they're making money. Pull out a second, pull out a third. Right now, between Alaska and Delta, we have 9 direct flights to Seattle. So that's kind of the really slow progression step. And there's a lot of things you gotta do to try to get that, let's say Southwest, who we're talking to. How do you get them started here to get to that point? And there's some revenue guarantees or some other things we can do to incentivize them. But overall, it's all of you who fly. And hopefully you're flying Redmond and that's what the airlines care about. Okay, yep, thanks.
All righty. Last but not least, we have Megan Gassner. Megan Gassner is the program analyst for the City of Redmond's Urban Renewal Program. Prior to joining the city in 2019, she worked for the High Desert Education Service District in the Legal Services Department for 8 years. She's lived in Redmond with her family for 6 years, and has 2 children in the Redmond School District who are both in the dual language immersion program. She's excited for some of the new projects coming to Redmond and look forward to sharing those with Rotary. What's happening? What can we expect?
I know, good stuff. Also Willamette grad 2007 from the law school. So I think I'm probably one of the only University of Washington alums in Central Oregon, and I married a duck, and so that's always been a point of contention. So I try to rely on the Willamette connection for my Oregon thing. But yeah, last year was a really busy year for the Downtown Urban Renewal District, and we're hoping to kind of beat those numbers this year in terms of development and investments made. I think most of you have probably heard my supervisor Chuck Arnold here, so I'll kind of go through this section a little on the faster side, but essentially the urban renewal program, our goal is to invest tax revenue so that we can grow the tax base within the district, eliminate any blighted conditions, increase the downtown activity, and all of that helps to kind of improve the general appearance of our downtown. Downtown is kind of that little yellow box right there, what we all think of as downtown, our core 5th and 6th Street, but the district actually stretches up to Maple Avenue, south to Veterans Way, and over on the east side as well. And I'm sure Chuck has mentioned this before, but we call it our seahorse, because once you see the seahorse, you do not see the seahorse.
That's true.
So we always reference, are we in the fin of the seahorse? Are we in the head of the seahorse? So that is generally where the downtown district, that's our kind of our coverage area of town. So last year we, actually let me back up a little bit. One of the ways that we make these investments into town is through our grant and loan program. Last year we issued 28 grants and loans out to local property owners and business owners. Those totaled almost $500,000 in investment value, which helped to bring in almost $6 million in property improvements. So there were a couple projects that really contributed to that, larger number there, but we were really proud of those numbers last year, although I think it's become like, a goal each year that I get at least a couple more out every year. So we're gunning for it this year. One of the bigger projects that it's kind of bridging last year and this year is the Bank Commons building. I did not know until I found this picture that it used to be blue and gold or yellow, but definitely looking a little different right now. We have Desert Prairie Boutique, which has opened, and the storefront on the bottom floor there. And then there's going to be 5 market rate apartments up above, and those are very near completion. I think the property owner is planning on getting those leased out here in the next month or 2. And one of the other big projects from last year was the Arch building, which is right on 6th Street. That's the new kitchen gourmet food store downtown. Also has a little wine bar in there if you haven't stopped in yet. They also did 8 apartment units up above that leased up in, I think, a matter of hours. So certainly a high need downtown, and I think they really did justice to the building, keeping a lot of that original brick and flooring as much as they could. So really great project. Happy to have the additional housing units downtown. And then some other fun ones that happened last year include up on the top left there, Feast Food Company. They were a food cart over at Cobalt Brewing, opened their restaurant. If you haven't been there yet, it's fabulous. They've done a really good job. True farm to table, using local farms. So local butchers. So really good. The fried mushrooms are amazing. Next to them is Otto's Landing, food carts and tap house as well. And then Vision Source recently moved from their location over by Initiative Brewing to 4th and Evergreen. So I think they're able to add more doctors, see more patients, have a lot more space there. So that was good as well. And then right next to them is our new pet supply company, Local Paws. And they have been busy and wonderfully active in the community. I think they're hoping to get a pet parade going this summer, so we'll have more to come on that. So for this next year, and these pictures are already incredibly outdated, as it was mentioned, Testimony Wine Bar opened up on Monday. Fabulous, really great seeing that building repurposed. It was if you go in there, it's hard to tell the amount of work that had to go into that building. I'd never been a restaurant before, and so they had a ton of kind of behind the scenes work to do besides just making a pretty wine bar. So it was really exciting to see that they opened up on Monday. Super happy about that. And the deck's going to be a great space in the summertime. And they also have, I think they're trying to turn it into kind of a little speakeasy style basement club member section. So that'll be fun to see that project.
Rotary will be having one of their happy hours there.
I might need to find out about that. Yeah, really great spot. I highly encourage you to stop by there. And yes, they do have coffee platter tomorrow morning over there. Another one we're really excited about is the Blacksmith Public House. So this is the old blacksmith and welding shop on 4th and Evergreen. He is turning it into spread across 2 lots actually. So it's going to be kind of just community gathering space, some food trucks. I think that the landscaping, he's already, tripled what it looks like from there, but fire pits, very kid friendly, family friendly. And then the main building, he's added this upper deck structure that's got some really great mountain views as well. But planning on having taps inside, wine, I think a limited bar, coffee shop will be going in there. So he's planning on it really being open, all day, every day. And also very exciting, Sister Smokehouse is moving into that building as well. So yes, really great. They're gonna not only just do their wholesale out of there, but also have a deli counter as well, so you can go grab a sandwich. So that will be very exciting. And I actually just spoke to him this morning. I think he's planning on being open by the end of next month. So keep your fingers crossed for that. Another fun project that is happening right now is the old Flag City Diner is going to be the home of Rod's Quality Meats. So also kind of your old school butcher shops planning on selling meats and cheeses out of there. I believe he smokes his own cheeses as well. So they're getting that all cleaned up on the inside and putting in some new doors and windows. So be good alternative to going to Fred Meyer's to get your deli meat. I'm excited about this project. And then one that is kind of an internal urban renewal project. We recently, the lot still looks like this, nothing's changed. But this is at 5th and Fir. And urban renewal actually purchased this lot. It's been vacant forever and had not been selling on the private market. So we actually purchased the lot and recently issued a request for proposals out to developers to get a housing project going there. So we're hoping that this process of buying these kind of blighted vacant lots will be the first of, hopefully a few other similar projects where urban renewal can invest the funds to purchase a property. use that to help incentivize some housing development and bring some more housing units into town. So we're hoping to start breaking ground on that late spring, early summer, and basically just wash, rinse, and repeat that process with some other properties that just haven't been selling and are, you know, clearly kind of some of our more blighted areas around town. So yeah, so those are some of the highlights for what's coming up. You know, I say that now, and there's probably going to be a couple emails in my inbox of business owners who have ideas, who want to move into town. It's just, you know, we're fielding phone calls from Ben businesses all the time, looking to come up to Redmond. It feels like downtown is, you know, just kind of on a streak right now. I think last time Chuck did, he kind of does like a survey around town of what our occupancy looks like. And last time he did it, and it's probably even higher now, we were at 94% occupancy for downtown, which was pretty remarkable. In all of his years working for the city of Bend, 94% was usually their peak number as well. So that was really positive. It's great seeing all the activity in downtown, and even the storefronts that look empty or not, there's work going on behind the scenes, there's plans. So so yeah, so if you have any questions about any of the projects downtown, I'm happy to answer. If you have any questions about these projects, I'm happy to answer anything.
I've heard of a project that's proposed kind of out by the airport. Can you fill us in on that? A retail?
I'm not sure about any retail stores out there. Chuck might know a little bit more, or partners over at Ready, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you're aware of anything.
Not retail, it's.
Good question for you.
Yes.
With the limited amount of commercial space available downtown area, what's the preferred direction the city needs to grow in or wants to grow in? We're going north or south? We're heading east over the tracks?
That is a great question.
Yes.
Yeah, the tracks always pose a problem. Trying to get any movement in terms of adding, you know, more connections across the track is basically a non-starter with railroads. Certainly, you know, just where our map is at, we are certainly hoping to put in more infrastructure over on the east side of the track so that we can start to generate some more activity over there. So that's definitely high on our priority list as well. But you know, for downtown, in terms of what we kind of think of as downtown, that is most definitely stretching further north. It feels like every year. We actually adjusted in the code what is considered a downtown overlay district by a few blocks further north, so we can help you know, bring in some more incentives for property owners that otherwise wouldn't have qualified. As far as the town's growth direction, I know we're working on West Redmond area plan, kind of further out by Helmholtz and pushing out that way. So what that looks like in terms of development, I think kind of still remains to be seen. But you know, I wouldn't say Redmond's bursting at the seams, like, you know, like we see Bend so often, but certainly there's been a lot of planning and realization that the population growth that we thought we would see by 2040 is going to hit us 8 years sooner than that. So it's, you know, really speeding up on how we accommodate that type of growth.
The one thing that is kind of interesting, in the next 5 years, we'll have $500 million of investment in Redmond just on the public and nonprofit side. That doesn't even include private investment. One of the major ones is going to be the hospital. They're putting in a $90 million state-of-the-art cancer center. And one thing Megan and Chuck are working on is we have a medical district up there, and looking as part of the downtown urban renewal of looking at some type of affordable housing in conjunction with that, so we can actually attract nurses and teachers and other people to live close to where they work. As far as expansion of the community is concerned, it's, you know, it's still an open issue. My preference would be farther to the northeast. One reason for that is there's an 1,100 acre parcel out there owned by the county, which would give us a lot more flexibility on providing affordable housing, mixed use development, etc. And having people live closer to where they work rather than having all this east-west congestion, I think would be helpful. And finally, one thing we've started to talk about is some grade separated crossings of the railroad at various locations. Still long-term, but I think one thing the community will need is better east-west connectivity in the long run. So this town's gonna grow, it's gonna grow a lot. I mean, when you talk about $500 million of just public and nonprofit investment, on top of that, probably an equal amount of private investment over the next 5 years or so. It's a lot of money, more than has been invested in this community in the last 20 years combined. So we've got a lot of work to do, a lot of planning to do. But it's challenging, but it's also exciting. And try and keep that character of the community as a family friendly kind of progressive combination that we've had for the last 40 years is going to be important.
All right. We're gonna run a little bit over today, if you don't mind. We've got a lot of information. Any other questions for the panel? Ed, you're leaving? Hey, thank you for appreciation. Thanks very much.
I gotta run off too, sorry.
And Zach, as a token of appreciation, thank you, and Megan.
I'm gonna take it, I'm staying.
And you're staying. Thank you very much.